So you got the sun in the middle, and you got the Earth on one side of the sun. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to paint a mental picture for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're on, it's midnight, so you're looking in the opposite direction of the sun when you look up. You're
Okay.
standing on the side of the Earth compared to the sun, whatever, and you're looking
Okay.
up, and you see stars, whatever stars you see, doesn't
Okay.
matter. Okay, 6 months later,
Mm.
the Earth is on the other side of the sun.
Okay.
Okay, midnight is facing away from the other side of the sun.
Okay.
Correct?
Yes.
And you look up and you see a lot of the same stars,
Same ones.
the same ones. And in reality, those stars are on the other side of the sun.
The whole universe, like the other side of the like 100,000 something million miles away, right?
This is Darryl E Berry Jr. back with the third installment of my documentary, 5 Principles of Flat Earth and Other Globe Deniers, whether it be, of course, flat Earth believers or convex Earth believers or concave Earth believers or stationary Earth believers, whatever form or fashion of their globe denial. This one deals with a conversation I had with flat earther DITRH and flat earther and apparently now concave earther or convex earther, whichever one, Horry. So we're going to go into a conversation that we had several months ago now and point out a few of the different points that were brought up in the discussion. Let's take a look. And to make sure you're aware of where I am, I'm not here to try to argue with you or anything like that. Uh, uh, you could sum up my position as trying to learn. So Horry here said that some of the conclusions I was drawing was inaccurate, that the information I was getting from the flat earthers I was getting it from were not accurate, but that you're the man and you
I
have
don't
the
know about
answers.
that, man, but maybe I can answer some of your questions. Let's give it a try.
Sounds good. Now, to clarify this point, I started a series of videos called Flat Earth Challenges and Flat Earth Responses, which eventually became the Realizing the Shape show. But I would debunk some of the claims that Flat Earth believers would make. And Horry came along and said, wait, no, you're not really debunking flat earthers because those are not real flat earthers, and those flat earthers don't really understand what the flat earth is, and you need to talk to one of the real flat earthers, right? So I was like, okay, well, what's some of the real flat earthers? And one of them he said was DITRH. So I was like, well, look, if you're saying I'm not debunking the real flat earth stuff, let me go ahead and talk to your flat earth person, and then I can get the real, what the flat earth really is about. And it's of note that he was actually reluctant to let me talk to him, which seems to be just some denial and delusion. Basically, you're not really talking to the real flat earthers. This guy's the real flat earther, but wait. I don't really have time to sit you up to talk to him, and he was making all kind of excuses. At one point, he was saying, "Well, I'm too busy. I have to take care of my kid, whatever." I'm like, "Well, look, just get us in contact with each other, and we can talk. You don't have to be there." And of course, even though he was so busy, he couldn't really set it up. Eventually, I shamed him enough that he finally did. As you can see, he was right there, trying to save him from himself a few times. Uh, so that's how this discussion started. I say, okay, then let me learn what the flat Earth really is about. Since you're saying what I'm learning is not really flat Earth stuff.
And all of the ballers, with respect, all they're saying, screaming, is solar filter. You're not using solar filter. Use a solar filter. Use a solar filter. And they think I'm trying to make a video about the size. So I finally said, okay, you know what? Let me get a filter. And I got an ND16. I don't know crap about solar filters, all right? And I put it on, and I knew immediately that it wasn't dark enough for what they wanted. But I put it on anyway. It helped with the glare a little bit. And in my video of the sun fading out, I took a couple still shots, and I said, to me, it looks like it's getting smaller, and that's it. But that wasn't the point of the video. I do not claim that the sun is getting smaller. and that's I actually believe that it's getting smaller, but I have not captured it with a solar filter. Now today, I actually used a real solar filter. I have a solar filter that I had for my P900, and I cut it out and put it in one of the lenses for the drone. And what it does is it makes it look like the sun sets. The sun, you actually see it disappear from the bottom up, and then it's gone. Mm-hmm. And I quickly took the drone down, pulled the solar filter off, put the drone back up, and the sun was still there. Okay? So the problem with the solar filter is assuming that the sun's light travels for billions of miles and millions of years, when it doesn't, in my opinion.
Okay.
The throw of the sun's light is very limited, and when you put a solar filter on, you limit that throw even farther. So the only time that you would ever see the sun shrink is those last couple of degrees, maybe 2 degrees, 1 degree, 3 degrees, whatever it is, of its apparent drop to the horizon. At that point, perspective has used up all the perspective, and now you're going to see it shrink away. The problem with that is it's going farther away through the densest atmosphere, and the atmosphere is going to eat it before it turns to nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's what my videos were proving. My videos prove that the sun doesn't set, it disappears into the thickness of the atmosphere.
The light doesn't shine forever. The sun's light does not shine as far as we think, and the solar filter is limiting that even more. And we still get the sun is disappearing from the bottom up, but that's only due to perspective.
Right, and I didn't want to limit the light, because putting a filter on makes the sun disappear that much faster. I'm showing that without a filter, the sun gets eaten by the sky, the air. Yeah. And if I put a filter on, it gets eaten. It disappears sooner.
So one thing that came up here is he was making some videos. DITRH was making some videos about capturing sunsets, and I, amongst other people, noticed he wasn't using a solar filter. And in the video that you see, sort of screenshotted, the title of or post you saw screenshotted to the left side in this video, you notice it says with a solar filter, but that filter wasn't a solar filter. If I remember right, I made a video about it. And but one interesting thing I heard him say is he said he got a proper solar filter, and with a proper solar filter he noticed the sun disappear from the bottom up. But then he took the solar filter off, sent the drone back up, but the sun was still there without the solar filter. Now, one thing I've learned, and perhaps that's my ignorance or my delusion. It took a while, and it still takes a while to not give them some benefit of the doubt. And I've learned that you can't give globe deniers any benefit of the doubt at all. You cannot assume that they understand anything or that they will do anything in some kind of logical or rational fashion. So he had he said he got a proper solar filter, and you saw the sun disappear from the bottom up when it was setting. And then he said he took the solar filter off and sent it back up, and the sun was still there. So we know, us rational thinking people who apply, who investigate in a scientific way, we know that you could watch the sunset and send a drone up, and then the sun will still be there because your angle from that higher distance, you could see over the curvature of the earth and still capture the sun. So when he sent the drone back up, it could have been that he sent it up higher to help protect his belief. Or it could simply be that he was catching some of the refraction or what have you, or glare or what have you, that you can still see without a solar filter on. But notice that he just dismissed that. We'll talk later in this video, I'm pretty sure I'll leave it in, how he's supposed to actually take 2 drones. Apparently he got a second drone, and what he was supposed to do is actually send one drone up with a solar filter and one drone up without a solar filter to see what actually happens with both of them side by side. I scrolled through his videos while putting this together, and I don't see he done that yet. If he did, I don't know. But whether he did or not, he didn't. The video is not up there, which is consistent with flat Earth believers. Um, so here we can have at the least just ignorance, ignorance of what a real solar filter is. As you said, he bought the filter immediately. He saw that it was not what he needed. He apparently didn't know how to actually find a proper solar filter. But he still put the video up, even though he said the moment he put it on, he knew it wasn't as dark as what, quote, Globers said they needed. He still put the video up saying with a solar filter. That didn't just appear in his video magically. He put that there, obviously. So at least we have ignorance. The fact that he has yet to put the video up with the solar filter and non-solar filter drones at the same time, it could be laziness. Or it could be just denial, just not wanting to challenge his beliefs. As we'll see later, he apparently didn't want to talk to me again. So that's consistent. I don't believe any flat earther yet has talked to me twice. I'll do another one where I talked to Riley. He didn't want to talk again. Horry Sheep, the other one in this video, didn't want to talk again, and apparently DITRH doesn't want to talk again as well. Pretty sure I messaged him and he just didn't reply back. So far it seems like we can have either ignorance, denial, laziness, or some combination of these. Let's keep on going and see what we have.
What do you call that atmospheric layer, that black layer of atmosphere that eats the sun? What do you call it?
So Darryl Berry?
That's
Berry,
right. That's right.
Yeah. So when you're looking, let's say
well, if you don't mind, before we go to the next point, can I just make sure I just to clarify that I understand what you said so far?
Sure.
So you put the solar filter on, a proper solar filter. So a proper solar filter.
And it blacks out the sky. The only thing you can see is a dot.
Okay. And when you put that solar filter on that blacks out the sky, where all you see is the orb of the sun, you did see it disappear from the bottom up.
Well, here's the problem.
Well, that was a question. That was a question.
Yeah, no. Yes, yes. I did.
Okay.
Here's the problem. The problem. There was some spotty clouds in the distance. Some thick clouds, and it could have just been being eclipsed by that cloud. And then when I went down and came back up, it was now below that cloud from my vantage point, and it was back there. The only way to tell if that's what happened, if it went behind a cloud layer, which it did, is if we need two drones at the same time filming, one with and one without a filter. I can't tell what it went behind, but the filter
made it. Let me make sure I'm understanding properly. So you're saying that you're not really sure if it was the horizon that made it go from bottom up or a cloud?
No. It definitely wasn't the horizon. It was well, I call it the atmospheric deck, or the opaque atmospheric deck. It was either that or a cloud even closer. I don't know, right? Because as it's moving away, it's disappearing into that deck. If you darken and if you put a real solar filter on, that's taking so much light out of the picture that it might, a lesser cloud might black it out. It might, I'm trying to get my words here.
I understand.
Let's say a cloud that would only take out 50% of the light, so you can still see the disk. But if I put the lens on it, it's going to take out 100% of the light. So it would get eclipsed behind that.
I see. I'll tell you what then. Why don't you on the day that's really clear, where you know it's clear and there's no clouds, would you go ahead and put the solar filter on then, and then fly your drone up and record it, and then we can talk about that again, because apparently since there were some clouds, we can't really get a solid confirmation on it.
Even better. I now have two drones. I bought a second drone, so I can film simultaneously.
There we go.
And
That's
without
beautiful. That is perfect. So I'll tell you
Yeah.
what. Soon as whenever you have a clear day, when you can do that on a clear day where you know there's no clouds, you can fly boat drones and so forth. It'd be a small thing for us to come back together and talk about that again.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now here we see him introduce a concept called the opaque atmospheric deck. And before that, when you noticed, I asked him, just very straightforwardly, to clarify when you first sent the drone up with a proper solar filter, the sun disappeared from the bottom up. You notice initially he didn't answer the question. Initially he went straight to excuses or explanations or rationalizations. And I stopped him, wait. That was a question. He answered it briefly, but then went straight on to try to rationalize or what have you. That seems to fit the bill of either denial or delusion of some combination. Not really wanting to sit with the evidence that came, but going straight to some explanations or rationalizations of why he can still be right. And he mentioned something called the opaque atmospheric deck, which yeah, let's keep going.
The real answer is, and I'm going to start, I'll back into it the best I can, is the only thing anybody, yourself, any scientist, anybody can really say about the things that we see in the sky is that they're luminaries. There's nothing else we can say. We don't know how big they are. We don't know where they are. We don't know how far they are. We don't know anything other than they're lights, right? There's no pictures of planets. The only, we look through a large telescope, super zoom lens, whatever you got, at a planet, and we see a light. That's it, a light. And then NASA and Disney show us these images, these paintings, and like, oh, this is the planet. Just like they just found an underwater lake on Mars. They discovered the other day.
Okay.
But meanwhile, the scientists in Hawaii, as the lava comes out of the lava lake and goes past the caldera, they're like, we don't know what's going on. We don't know where it's going. We don't know how high this lava lake is. We don't know where the lava is coming from.
They don't know when it's going to stop. We don't know if it's going to destroy the whole island. Nothing.
And they're here. And meanwhile, they're looking at the sky and they're coming up with these fantasy stories, which are just utter nonsense. So, yeah, a lot of flat earthers have a lot of ideas. Dave Murphy.
And I find this one quite interesting. You notice he said that they're just lights, they're just luminaries. And he said there's no pictures of the planets. So that seems to at least be denial. Those of us who are thinking are rational people who don't avoid the evidence know that we have valid pictures of planets and so on and so forth. This is a consistent thing when talking to or observing the so-called points put out by globe deniers. They say that when they look through telescopes or whatever cameras, they see only lights. I remember I was having a chat conversation with Horry in the live chat on one of my videos, and we were talking about that, and he was saying the same thing. He looked through his telescope, his own personal telescope, and all he saw was a light. That's all in well, either you have a horrible telescope or you're not using it properly. Because I've looked through my telescope myself, my own telescope, and I saw Mars. I was able to see the red planet, see the ice caps. I saw Jupiter. I was able to see the features of the sort of cloud bands along the planet. It wasn't just the light. I was able to clearly see a planet. So, it could be denial. They just not want us to look at the evidence, which will support the delusion of believing that no one has any real pictures or evidence of the planets. No one really knows what they are. It's obviously not true. And it could be just stupidity. Maybe he's just not intelligent enough to properly work a telescope or properly investigate the to see what these things are. I mean, it's possible, but it seems more so denial than delusion. Let's continue. Okay.
But the way I see it is and the sun and the moon and the stars are all in a unique position based on each person. Like if you and I were at the beach watching the sunset and you're a mile down the beach, the sun is going to skirt across the water right to your feet. There's going to be a line across the water to your feet. And there's going to be a line across the water to my feet. I can't see your line. You can't see my line. We can't see the sun in the same position. And here's the best way that I can describe how we see it. I call it the reflected sun or the apparent sun. And again, this is my opinion. There's lots of evidence showing that this is the case. But again, all we know is there are lights in the sky. Here's an experiment you can do. You got a nice big room, and you divide the room with a blue sheet, like a bedding sheet. You know, it's just imagine, just in your mind, and it's kind of very sheer sheet, right? So you can almost see through it, and that's the sky. So you got your back to the wall, and you're facing the sheet, which is cutting the room in half in front of you. Okay, you with me? I'm drawing a picture.
Okay.
Here, and I'm on the same side of the sheet as you, and you're on one side of the wall, and I'm on the other side of the wall. On the far side of the room, on the other side of the sheet, we have a bright light, a sun. Okay. In the middle of the room, facing, just the light.
Understand? So the sheet is in the middle between us. I'm on one wall. You're on the other wall.
We're
on the same side.
We're on the same wall, but we're separated by 20 feet.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
And we're both.
You're both looking at the light that's behind the sheet.
Okay. And the light is behind the sheet.
I got you.
The light is 50 feet behind the sheet.
Okay.
Okay. On 50 feet away. So you're gonna draw a line from your eyes to the light, and that line's gonna go through the sheet to the light, and right where that line hits the sheet, that's where you're gonna see a bright light on the sheet. You don't actually see the light; you're gonna see the light on the sheet, right? You know what I'm saying?
So that's your sun.
You draw a little sun there. I'm gonna see the light on the sheet in a completely different spot, and I'm gonna look over at you and not even understand how you see it on that position. It makes no sense to me. Okay, and that's how I believe that we all see the sun, the moon, and the stars. But just stick with the sun right now. So we all see them in our personal viewing dome. Okay. So again, how does that work? I have no idea, but you can.
And what you're saying is the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets. All anyone can know at this point is that they're luminaries. No information on exactly what they are, where they are, anything like that. Just that they're lights.
That's all we can say. I mean, what else can you say for sure about these things in the sky? You haven't been there. And in my opinion, no one's been to any of them.
Now, this is quite interesting. Now, the first thing that DITRH was talking about was like when you're at a beach, and let's say the sun is setting, and you can see sort of the reflection of the sun making a light directly to you, and the person next to you sees the reflection of the sun making a light across the water directed to them. And according to him, that means that it's kind of like we can't see the sun in the same spot. We see it in a different location. That could just be stupidity. It could just be an inability to recognize that the sun is spreading light in all directions. So light is coming from the sun towards the person next to me, and light is coming from the sun directly to me. So the light reflecting from the water that's coming to me, it looks like a line coming to me, and the light coming from the sun reflecting off the water at an angle towards that person seems to be a line going to them, and the sun is in one place reflecting, radiating light in both areas at the same time. Perhaps that's just too much for him to comprehend. And he goes on to reiterate that that it's just luminaries. He gave just sort of sheet in between a light source analogy, and I'm seeing, like, if I draw a line through the sheet, I would say the sun is there, and that person would see it could just be stupidity. Maybe it's just, yeah, I mean, it kind of speaks for itself of what it could be. Let me know what you think, what it seems to be to you. But it seems to be maybe it's just a stupidity thing. Maybe you can't comprehend that.
We're told that a lunar eclipse is when the Earth shadow hits the moon, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's been many documented eclipses, Selenelion eclipses, where the observer that's seeing the eclipse not only can see the sun and the moon above the horizon, at the same time during the eclipse, the shadow, in quotation marks, doesn't come in from the bottom of the moon. It comes in from the top. Okay? So you can say refraction, the moon is that the sun and the moon are actually below the horizon and you're seeing them, but that wouldn't explain the shadow coming in from the viewer's point of view from the top. Okay? It's clear that it's not a ball Earth shadowing a moon.
Now here I'll have to go back to something I said earlier. I've learned that you can't give flat Earth believers or concave Earth believers or convex Earth believers or stationary Earth believers any benefit of the doubt of any kind of rational thought, any kind of legitimate research. If you do that, you'll end up in a bad place. So you heard him just say that in certain lunar eclipses, the shadow of so a person is standing on the Earth looking at the moon, but for some reason or some way, the shadow supposedly of the Earth appears from the top and starts moving down. He presented no evidence of that. He's just saying that, which means it's likely just bullshit. So what could that be? Delusion? It could be stupidity, just not being intelligent enough to go observe it himself or do some kind of legitimate research. Wherever he got it from, he didn't give a source, he's just saying it. Denial of what's really going on. And I'll let him go on a little bit more on this, and then we'll look at a website that gives a visual of how those type of eclipses work.
The other thing is because you can't take you can't in a lab get models and lights and recreate that in any way, shape, or form where the observer on the middle ball can see both balls, the light and the moon, and the shadow would come in from the top, and they would both be above his horizon. You can't model that.
So one thing you'll run into is one thing I've seen several times is these globe deniers will say that doesn't make any sense, as if the universe has to correspond to what makes sense to them, or as if they're generally sensible. I found that they're not. So what makes sense to a flat Earth believer or a convex Earth believer or a convex Earth believer, a concave or convex or a stationary Earth believer, that's a very bad yardstick to measure whether something is really sensible or not. That's the first thing. And you notice that in the first clip about this type of eclipse, he mentioned, you could say refraction, but then he throws in the shadows coming from the top. I've never seen it or heard it said that the shadow ever comes from the top. I just hear him saying it. And he throws that extra thing in to say, because there's this website here that I found where there's apparently a site that is debunking flat Earth stuff. And the guy mentions how what a Selenelion eclipse basically is refraction that makes it seem as if the sun and the moon are higher than they normally are. That explains that. So you have to throw in something else to debunk that even farther, and it's simply, the shadow's coming from the top as well. Which, with this positioning, it would be kind of hard to explain how the shadow of the Earth could come from the top down on the moon. Again, he has to show that that actually happens. But that could simply that could be what? Delusion? Believing something to support your position with no evidence. Denial of what's really going on. Speaking to him, I doubt he's ever seen an actual lunar eclipse. We'll talk a bit about another sort of thing he says that we observe that he has to look up somewhere again. That contradicts what anybody has ever seen or looked up or legitimately before, which we'll get to. So far I'm seeing delusion, denial, stupidity. Let's keep on going.
Another thing you can't model is you can't take a dusty, dirty rock and light it up like the moon without a hot spot. The moon, on a full moon night, on a clear night, you can read by it. You can read a newspaper by it. It casts shadows on the ground. It's so bright. You can see your moon shadow. And if you know
it casts a cold light as well.
Right. And so it's throwing so much light, and then we watch the moon missions, and they're on a dusty, dirty ball, okay?
With shadows on it.
Yeah. And if you know anything about how light travels, the inverse square law, it would have to be, we did the math, it's ridiculous. It would have to be like 180,000 times, don't get me wrong, it might even be more than that, brighter than we see it here on Earth, on the moon. And none of that makes any sense.
Do I even need to say anything? Maybe you should listen to that little section of what they say again. I'll go ahead and stop here for now with DITRH and Horry sheep, and I'll continue the rest of our talk in another video, including a part where we talk about this image that DITRH brought up, where he says that we could be on the side of the planet and see some of the same stars 6 months apart. I put a bit of that audio in the opening of this part of the documentary. So let me know what y'all think so far. Do you think the observations I've made, the conclusions I've made on the denial, the delusion, the stupidity, do you think it's fair? Do you think the points he made was good, valid? What do you think about their idea that the moon casts cold light? That there's a problem that for there to be shadows on the moon, or that the moon, if you're standing on the moon, it should be 180,000 times or more brighter standing on the moon than what we see, because the light is being reflected from the moon and enough to cast a shadow here. To any thinking person, I mean, wow. So look forward to further installments. I appreciate you watching.